Yeah.
So here we are. It's Chris and Jerry. And today we're going to talk about the really high level view of becoming a business owner. And whether that be an independent business owner or a franchisee uh, of, of some franchise, it's essentially the same. So, so Chris, where would you like to start in talking about this?
Well, I want to, ask you the question too, before we even get started. Do you see a difference? Is there a distinction for you and all of your experience and wisdom through the years between becoming a business owner and becoming an entrepreneur? Are those two terms interchangeable?
I don't think so. So for me, entrepreneur, I think of more as a serial entrepreneur, more like I've got this concept, I'm going to bring it to the world. Now I'm going to have this concept, bring that to the world. Um, I also think an entrepreneur is doing something new and different that hasn't been done before, whereas a business owner is fitting more into a model one way or another that the path's already been laid.
You can buy an existing business that's been around for 100 years. You can invest in your own franchise operation, which has a system built behind it. Those types of things. Business owners, entrepreneur, a little more out there, finding their way.
I think the entrepreneur also has more risk. Again, I've got these associations with, ooh, it's new, it's different. You don't have a playbook, so that to me is at one end of the spectrum. An entrepreneur has no playbook. They're going to figure out the business as they go. A business owner, I think, has some amount of uh, of history available to them in that type of business. And then the franchisee, at the full other end, has everything laid out for how to run the essence of the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not entrepreneurial at all. It's here's a business that has a proven way of operating.
That's very interesting. I've never thought of it in those three categories where you've got entrepreneur, business owner, franchisee. I've always thought that franchisee has that entrepreneurial spirit because they want to do something, they want to change their life, but there's a risk mitigation plan in place because they're getting into an established system. But what you just showed me is that the difference between the business owner and the franchisee in terms of the operation, because you can become a business owner overnight by purchasing a business, right?
Yeah.
There's layers and layers of risk mitigation in place because you're looking at the numbers, you're looking at the history, you're doing all of the due diligence that you need to do before you buy that. But once you buy it, and this is probably often the case, is once you buy the business, it's yours free and clear to do what you want. And that's where, a lot of people come in and buy businesses to turn them around, to
Yeah.
completely change the system. We're doing everything different. As of this day, I'm the new owner and we're changing everything. The franchisee doesn't do that, can't do that, and shouldn't do that. They're coming
Yeah.
in, they're doing all of their due diligence. They're looking at the history of the system. They're looking at, the risk, the risk mitigation resources that are in place. So all of that is similar to the business owner, but once they're in, it is with the purpose and intent of continuing to do things the way that the system's set up, whereas the business owner can change it all overnight. And I've never had that. I've never looked at that with that distinction. So thank you for that.
Well, Glad to give you an epiphany on a beautiful Wednesday morning here in Connecticut, right? Um, here's something interesting that I think we could talk about. Before you owned your first business, and I'll talk about before I owned my first business, did you think of yourself as wanting to be a business owner or wanting to be an entrepreneur? What was your focus?
I don't know if I ever really cerebrally thought that, but I always felt it. I always felt it in my soul. I didn't say someday I'm gonna buy a lemonade stand, or I'm gonna start a lemonade. I never said I'm gonna start a cat hotel someday. And like it was never this idea that I've been working towards my whole life. It was just, I was somewhat of a lost soul, and I just knew some way, somehow, I don't know what, but I'll be doing my own thing, because I just always was always very independent, introverted, uh, marched to the beat of a different drummer type of self, assessment, and came from a family of entrepreneurs. My father started his own business. My uncle started his own business. My older brother started his own business. My first job was with it was at a restaurant. I mean, I was 14 years old, and I would rollerblade down the street and wash dishes, down at this restaurant, Village Pizza, and the family that owned that business, small business. Met my future wife, and her family owned a construction business, and I went to work for them in my 20s. And every experience was in my life has been through small business, and families and relationships and loyalty and all of those things. It's all of my imprint throughout my entire life. So I didn't know what, but I just knew somewhere, somehow, I'm going to end up doing my own thing.
Okay. So that's really cool. So there was this whole world that you were brought up in, like, oh, I'm just kind of following the family tradition of doing my own thing, having a business, right? Mine was probably the complete opposite. I mean, my dad was a banker in the same bank for 44 years. Seriously. He went in as like a teller, right? He did not have a college education, but he worked his way up through commercial loans. By the time I was walking the earth, he was high enough in a local bank that they made him a branch manager. So my whole world, all I saw was corporate. That to me was the way to go. And my uncle, made it a long way up the corporate ladder in Burroughs Corporation. So those were the imprints for me. But what's interesting is once I got into corporate life, I found out how much I hated it. And really, I didn't like being told what to do. I still don't like being told what to do, but there was always this concept of freedom. Like freedom was always driving me. And the only way I could see that was to have my own business. Yeah.
It occurred to me some years ago. I was telling a similar story just about my influences, and and you don't realize it as you're living it and going through it. But when you look back, you're like, oh, that's why I'm where I'm at. I see now.
Yep.
And it occurred to me that I had spent a grand total of 3 days maybe in corporate America. When I was 20, I think. I got a night position. I mean, I was on my own, just had rent to pay, all that type of stuff. I got a night position at this company RPS, which was a regional. They got bought out by FedEx, I believe, at some point along the way. They were up in northern Connecticut, and they
Yep.
were more of a regional shipping, company back in the 90s and early 2000s. And I was loading trucks, and that's as corporate as I ever got. And I did it for 3 days, and I was like, I can't. I just can't do it. I can't. I just. God bless the people who do and can
Yep.
go and focus on that and do a good job for weeks, months, years, an entire career. My brain is just wired differently, and it doesn't mean it's better or worse or anything. It's just
I get it.
I can't handle that kind of structure. It was just the monotony of it drove me insane in 3 days, and I quit. And and that's probably the only job I ever really quit. I mean, I'm loyal. I'm loyal to a fault.
It's hilarious.
Talk about just feeling like a rat in a cage. Oh my God. I got out of there quick.
The flip side of that for me was it sounds horrible now. Like I am now this enlightened business owner, right? That really doesn't think this way. But when I was coming out of college, I was looking at titles and salary. Like that was it.
Yeah.
And, that's what we played for. We played for the next promotion, and what you do to get that next promotion, like, because that title after your name meant everything. That was who you were in the corporate world, which was half your world. What a brutal way to live. Truly.
I think there's some level of I don't know, maybe the word is gamesmanship. I mean, because there's people who do it. There's people who live and work that corporate life their entire lives, right? And they're retired, like your father.
Yep.
And some of those people, they're miserable doing it, but it's a calculated, I'm fine doing this because I'm going to get to my retirement age. I'm going to get my retirement, and everything is just in lockstep, right? And I will continue to work up the ladder, and I will make more money. And that's good and safe for them, right? But they emotionally they hate it. That's some people. But then there's people who thrive on it. You know what I mean? Who live and work that corporate life, and man, that is their jam. And there's probably people listening who are rolling their eyes. Not my jam, because we talk to corporate expatriates all the time about the franchise opportunities. But I know that there's people, I have friends who live and work that corporate life and just thrive on the climb, of working up that corporate ladder. And they make great money, and they've got benefits, and everything is safe. And I mean, anybody can lose a job at any point in time. We understand that. But if they've made their way and they've got a resume, I mean, they're going to get another job. So it's just interesting the types of people and the mindsets. And you and I vomit, we think and talk corporate, but there's people who love it and thrive on it, and it's and there's people who do it but hate it too.
Well, and for me, it prepped me for owning a business. I mean, I got a great background in a lot of different areas by working that corporate life over the years. So again, these paths, they can lead you wherever you want to steer it. I think some people stay in corporate life also because they don't see the possibility of owning a business. I remember when I walked away from corporate life, my friends at the time were like, "What are you, crazy? You're going to go have your own business? You can't do that."
That's for crazy
people. Yeah. And truth is, there were times where it would just eat into my brain, the things that they'd say, like, you don't know what you're doing. You're not going to be able to do that. And, they'd make some sense. And I'd be like, oh man, can I really do this? So I think all these different paths come from different parts, right? Like there's the country path, there's the city path, there's all these different things. But you get to change tracks anytime you want and go out on a different route. I do think, though, that the people who own businesses, it's had to have been a desire. It's had to have been a desire for a while to own a business. I mean, for me, it was freedom. Yeah. Honestly, just give me the freedom of having my own business. That was the pull for me. But God only knows what it is for everyone else.
I think for some people it's control. I think for some people it is it's free. It's certainly freedom. That's a big one. I think for some people, and I might fall into this category, it's there's a fear of, for me, there's a fear of disappointment. Right. I'm petrified of disappointing people. It's a problem. We can talk about that another time.
With a licensed professional, we'll talk about that.
Yes. I hate letting people down. And when you are, an employee, you're perpetually at risk for letting people down. Right. And or at least in your mind, in my mind, that's how I saw the world. Now, if you talked to any of my employers throughout my life, they would tell you Chris was the best worker we ever had, and I wish he had never left, and blah blah. Like, I was a key. I became a key employee anywhere I went because of my work ethic and my loyalty and my willingness, all of those things. But in my mind, I'm like, this is a lot of pressure. I'm going to let this person down. They've made me a foreman. I'm going to let this person down. Just that constant fear of disappointment. And by going out on my own, now I'm the only person that can let me down. And I can reconcile that. I let myself down all the time. And that's a whole other thing, right? That's imposter syndrome. That's, beating yourself up over something you had no control, but it's only me. I'm not letting anybody else down. And that I just felt, that pressure has lifted from my shoulders when I became an entrepreneur. I make myself and I break myself. And I'm okay if I break myself. I can let myself off the hook. Because I tried a thing, I took a risk, it was whatever, but I can let myself down. I learn from it and I get better when I do it again. But I'm not doing that to somebody else. I'm not letting somebody else down. And
okay, so a compare contrast, that wasn't in my mind at all. Right? In my mind, this is going to sound so cocky, but failure wasn't an option. It just wasn't. It was never going to be. And, I've seen that on t-shirts ever since. And I actually owned one of those t-shirts for a while. But my path was, I'm going to look at something hard enough to make my calculated decision. And then once I go, I'm going.
Mhm.
Like, it doesn't matter. I will make this work. And there were times when I think I've had to rely on that state of mind more than anything else. Like, okay, I will make this work. Partly because I can't work for anybody else. Like, I'd be the worst employee ever now. Horrible employee, because I'd always want to do my own thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you've gotten a little snarkier in your elder years as well.
Well, thanks for that. Yeah. I think there comes a point in life where you don't put up with whippersnappers like you, Raimo.
Yeah, I think, oh man, there's so much, and those thoughts of disappointing people and things like that. Like, again, I don't recall it being a conscious decision. Like, I'm afraid to disappoint people, and so I'm going to go start a business. No, it's just where I allowed the universe to take me subconsciously, but then once I arrived, I was like, it's all on me, and I'm okay with that, because I believe in myself, and I, limitless possibilities, and I can do anything, whether that's,
true or not.
True or not. Yeah. Just,
Yeah.
and it's not cocky. It's just like, the reality is, at the end of the day, it's on me. And it brings another thought when people talk about, risk, and I'd like to start a business, but it's risky, and I don't know, and what if, and all. For me, again, whether wise or not, I always knew in the back of my mind, no matter what I do or try to do, I can always fall back on my ability to work and my willingness to work. So
Yep.
if we went out and borrowed a shit ton of money and put it into, starting this business and building it, and it came crumbling down, that would suck, yes. But it's not the end of the world. We're not going to starve. We're not going to, you know what I mean? Even if we lost our house, even if whatever could happen, I'm going to work the next day with a bankruptcy hanging over my head, and whatever, but I'm not going to stop providing for my family and doing, you know what I mean? And so when I came to the realization that, like, no matter what, I'll go back to work. I'll work 80 hours a week at McDonald's if I have to. That is my fallback. And so with that safety net, I feel comfortable trying just about anything, because I just have myself to rely on, and I saw it. I lived it. That was my old man. He lost his business. We were young, probably didn't really understand all that was going on, but at the turn of the early 90s, when the economy, just bottomed out, he had a construction business, and he lost that business. And never a day that I ever remember where I saw, my old man loafing on the couch. He went to work. He had friends. He picked up side gigs. He did whatever he had to do. He was working nights at the church, cleaning the church. I would go in with him sometimes. I was probably 9-10 years old. Just no matter what, he never stopped providing. And we lost our house, and we had to move to an apartment, and all that kind of stuff, and just never gave up. And I don't know. I guess I mean, that that stays with you. And
Yeah.
that's how I assess. That's part of what I use to assess risk. And I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to go for it, and fuck it. If I lose it,
Yeah.
I just go get a job.
So I wonder if this is a good place to step back for a second and take a look at, what does it really take to be a business owner? What have you and I uncovered already?
You gotta have a screw loose.
Well, there's that. We ain't quite right.
That's an excellent question. I think you have to I think you have to have a confidence within yourself. I think you know, and you don't have to see the escape plan. You don't have to know where the escape pod is. You just have to know that it exists. And you know, whether you're taking that confidence within yourself and saying, you know, using it in a sort of motivate, like, I can do anything, I'm going to go do this now, or whether you're taking that confidence in yourself and, like I said, you know, hey, whatever happens, I still have, you know, two shoulders and two legs, and I'll go to work. But it's belief within yourself. I think is the biggest thing with that. I don't know if I've ever come across a business owner or entrepreneur who didn't have that. There's lots of other things that we all do or do not have, but man, you got to believe in yourself.
It's really kind of profound. I think you're spot on with that. You know, and I've been helping business owners for over 20 years, right? But I don't think I had ever distilled it down to that. That's really something, because we all do have to believe in ourselves. Like, there are other factors that I think drive us to our business. There are probably factors that, you know, sustain us. But if you look for the common thread, it's believing in yourself. And I'm trying to go ahead.
And you know, and that can get perverted. There's entrepreneurs who go out there and, you know, more than believe in themselves, you know, they develop a God complex, and, you know, the Sam Bankman-Frieds of the world, and the, you know, all those types, the Elizabeth Holmes of the, you know, that stuff goes crazy and gets, you know, really perverted, but that's the extreme, you know, extreme end of things. Everybody else under that umbrella, it's just it's a quiet, you know, just confident, just belief in oneself. I don't know how else to shake it.
So I'm just scanning, you know, who I know, who's in business. Do they really have that confidence? Here's what I'm coming up with. I think a lot of them have the ingredients of it, but man, it's owning the business that really locks that in. You know, there's some like precursors to this that are like, okay, you know, I can do this. I think I can, but I think that gets shaken a bit, especially early on. I don't know of anybody who's been in business that within their first couple of years didn't stop and go, what have I done?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I've been in business 15 years, and I still ask myself that question sometimes.
From time to time, right? What have I done? Oh,
And I think I think where you see some businesses fail, um, I think that I mean there's all kinds of different factors that play into things.
yes, there are.
But if we're just going to generalize, I think that in a lot of instances where a business fails, it was at a crossroads where that business owner, entrepreneur, found themselves, and whatever the circumstances were, it was enough to shake that confidence within them out. Because until that moment, they had the confidence, and I'm sure they had faced challenges and overcome them. But COVID shows up, and nobody knows what's up and what's down, and where the future is and everything else. I mean, that's a major crossroads.
Mm.
A stock market crash, an economic down, a recession, a death, some major crisis shows up and knocks on your door. And for some people, yeah, they had confidence up until that point. Like, now it's holy shit, how do I do this? I can't. I thought I had it, but I can't. And
And is that just the mindset, Chris, in your opinion?
I feel a little guilty thinking that it is, because it's hard to say. Like I might just be glutton for punishment because I keep going and taking the wounds and just licking them and going and going. It's hard for me to put that on somebody else and say, no, you should have stuck it out a little bit more.
You're
It's
right.
just your mindset. Who am I to put that on somebody else? Everybody's got their limit, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that they're, anything less or not an entrepreneur or not a business owner. I mean, I think of my dad, like he lost his business. He went, to work, and it doesn't mean he wasn't an entrepreneur because he failed.
And his mindset was, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah.
Whether it's I own my business or I'm an employee of somewhere else, like,
right.
I'm just going to keep going.
Right. And life circumstances are a huge part of that. It's one thing when you're up against it and you're single, or you're just recently married, it's you and your wife and you're in this together and everything else. Everything changes. You got kids.
Yeah.
Everything changes.
Yeah.
I can't keep pushing this thing through this crossroads when I got 2 mouths to feed. I need to rethink, and I got to play it safe. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't begrudge anybody who makes that decision if they come up against hard times.
Yeah.
For me, it's I would do it if I had to, and I think going through COVID, and when COVID hit, that's probably the closest that I've ever come to packing it in. Probably lasted about 3 days, but I went there.
And I think you and I were talking during those 3 days.
That's true. We were,
if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And but everybody's circumstances are different. That's
right.
That's the point that I'm making.
So maybe that's a takeaway too, is, you will be tested. You and your business will be tested along the way. And that's part of the process too.
Yeah.
Part of owning a business is having more adversity than you thought you could take. Mm-hmm. Just show up on your lap. Like, come on now. you know?
And it's true that, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Yeah.
And when you do continue on through those crossroads, you're picking up tools along the way, and you're putting them in your backpack, and you're walking to the next crossroads.
That's true.
And so in your challenges, like more money, more problems, and all, the longer you do this, the harder it gets, and all that stuff is true. But you're not the fledgling, entrepreneur that you were when this all started. You're a battle tested,
Yeah.
dare I say, warrior of sorts. And these challenges come, and you're like, oh, I've never seen this before, but I got a lot of tools now. I got good people on my team that I've accumulated along the way. I've got, experiences to draw on. I've got people to turn to and ask questions of. It's just all that stuff. And I've got some confidence that, hey, I've been through fires before. I can do this.
That's, yeah. I really admire that in you. Like, yeah, it's just another day. We're going to get through this. Like, you've always got that. It's like a solid belief in what you're doing and what you're doing with everybody around you. Like, yeah, we're going to make our way through this.
I don't know.
Invaluable.
I don't know how. Sometimes, sometimes a lot of times,
Yeah,
I don't know how.
that's right.
But I just know that we've figured out things before.
Yeah.
And it's the same practice. It's the same approach and principles of outside the box thinking, and exploring and asking the right questions, and going deep enough in the list of questions to extract what is really at the crux of this issue that's before us, big or small. And that's the toolbox that I was talking about. You go through your first challenge, and you need to pull it apart and understand, and really examine it to work it out and fix it and put it together the way it's supposed to be, and get through the crossroads. And it's just, it's having that experience and knowing to do that again the next time. And it'll be a more serious problem the next time, but it's the same practice over and over and over and over again. And
so if we were to take a look at what we would want someone who doesn't currently own a business, but is considering owning a business, what do we want them to take away from this conversation that you and I just had?
Who do they think they are? Who do you look at yourself in the mirror, figuratively, literally, whatever, and decide what you are made of? Because it's not going to be easy, but it is you and only you that is going to make or break your opportunity. And if you look at yourself and you feel like, I don't have it, I can't, I don't know, I'm not sure, this, that, then you're probably not ready. But if you look at yourself, and that doesn't mean you're not ready forever, go back to the grind. And when you get pissed off enough too, right? When you get pissed off enough about your situation and everything around you and the job then you look at yourself in the mirror, like, I don't give a shit. I can do anything because it's better than that. I will, all that's, again, life circumstance. It puts you in different places, and your mind does different things at different junctures in your life. But yeah, who are you, and what are you made of? You gotta feel good about that before you take that step.
You just touched on something before we finish up. In so many changes that I think we make in life, there's often a last straw event. There's like, that's it. For me, on my weight loss journey, there was a last straw event when I was sick. I got up onto a scale in a doctor's office and I went, oh my God, I can't believe I weigh that much. It starts today. For me to become a business owner, I was following the track of riding two horses at the same time, because I was still in my corporate life and working on my coaching world. And the last straw event for me, and I don't think I ever told you this, was I had promised my daughter that I would be at all of her tennis matches. And I had already laid that out. On the corporate side, I was going to be assigned here and, I'd take time off. And this one week they said, no, you can't do that. You've got to stay here and do this. I quit my corporate job because of my daughter's tennis match. Mm-hmm. Right? Yep. So you look at that and you go, really, you walked away from all of that? Yeah, because that was the last straw. That was like it. That was no more. I don't know if anybody else is going to relate to that. Maybe they haven't gotten to the last straw yet. But I wonder if it's a piece of the journey.
I think that's right on. And that straw is different for everyone.
Yep.
I mean, the majority of the intel that we get on the state of the people and the souls of corporate America are coming through our franchisees and our franchise inquiries. I mean, virtually all of them are, I mentioned this earlier, corporate, struggling in corporate
expats
or corporate expats. Yeah. Or desire to be a corporate expat as soon as they possibly can. I mean, we're not talking to people who are already entrepreneurs and want to, start another business or anything like that. No, it's all get me the hell out of here. I've had the last straw.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, we talked about it, there's safety in franchising, but none of the reality is none of it's a guarantee. We can mitigate, we can limit risks. We know we can give them a pathway to, to success. But the most important thing that we can do as a team here is have those conversations with them, that at the end of the day, it's them. It's the success of the system or the success of their business is predicated upon them doing what they need to do and looking at themselves and saying, I can do this. Because challenges still come up that we could not see coming, that nobody understood, is a different market, whatever the case is. We're seeing some of it with like construction, things like that. And they've got to be ready to, walk through those fires. We're walking with them. That's the difference. We're walking with them. We're shielding them as much as we can. We're clearing debris in front of them as much as we can, but they still have to walk through the fire. And that's probably one of my favorite conversations that we have with candidates is like, it's still up to you. You could get the most sophisticated franchise brand out there. You could buy a Massage Envy or I don't know, a Jiffy Lube or a Dunkin' or anything like that. If you're not going to work it, the system can't overcome you not caring or you not trying. It's going to fail. So
And I think the only 2 cents I'd put on that is that it isn't what they're willing to do as much as who they believe that they are.
Yes. Yes.
Right. It's that I am a business owner. I will do whatever I need to do because of who I am. Yeah. Whew. Anything else that we ought to say before we close up? Because I feel like we've come to the end of the really high level.
Yeah. That was I feel that was pretty full circle. I think there's so much more that we can extrapolate on this, this topic. I'm looking forward to the next episodes. We can start to get into a little of the nitty gritty, but I think we'll always come back to this high level stuff because it's it's what the nuts and bolts are about, is your commitment to yourself, your
belief in yourself.
It's again, and time again, those are the reflection periods that I have. Those are the when there's an inflection point, it's where I have to look at myself and say, you can do this. I don't know, but you can do this. For 15 years, I've been, stopping at those places and saying that and doing that affirmation and everything else. And so all the skills and all of the other stuff, it's important, but this high level, who are you, what are you made of, is the one thing that you got to always hold on to and be sure of.
I think you just said this, but I want to say it my way. I would never trade this in. This life of a business owner, the struggles and the successes, the adversity and the pushing through, I wouldn't trade this for anything. I am so glad that they wouldn't let me go to my daughter's tennis match that day.
Yeah.
That was sure. Thank God, because that's what got me here, hanging around with people like you.
Yeah. I used to call it challenge addicted. I mean, an entrepreneur is challenge addicted. What's the next challenge? I'm bored with this. What's the next challenge?
Yeah.
What's the next challenge? I got to figure this out. What's the next challenge? And there's a time where it's like, okay, enough challenges.
Yeah, please.
Please, enough challenges. But you're right. I wouldn't leave it for the world. And if something ever happened and my back was against the wall and I felt there was absolutely no way out and I had to, put the entrepreneurial mantle down for some reason and
Yep.
And go to work, I know it would only be for a period of time. I couldn't finish my life out that way. I do what I'd have to do, to put food on the table, but
you'd be back.
I would be back like the Terminator. My brain would be just churning and churning. And there's something interesting in that too. A lot of venture capitalists and basically a lot of venture capitalists who were also once founders look for the good ones, look for entrepreneurs who have failed. They're looking for entrepreneurs and concepts to get behind, and they want to know what else you've done and tried and failed at. And that's what they want. because now they know you're the real deal. You're not going to run away when you know,
Yep.
when times get tough. And
Yep.
and what have you learned by that failure? They're backing that with their investment, because they know you're not going to make that mistake again, right? This is safer and safe. The more this person fails, the safer and safer and safer. We look at it in society and we say, oh, that guy's failed 10 times. He's an idiot. Why does he keep doing that? Because the big one's coming. He's figuring it out, and the big one is coming. I'd back that guy all day long. So I think that's something to you know, we talk about failure's not an option and doesn't kill you, makes you stronger. It's all a part of that same equation.
It's almost like you wouldn't trust someone that hasn't failed a bit.
Excellent point. Absolutely. And we see that too all the time on social media, you know, self-proclaimed gurus, and you know, I'm 24 and I'm going to tell you how to be successful at bucket. Yeah.
So you're not buying their $5,000 program to teach you something, Chris?
Program. No, I'm going to the 53-year-old person, man or woman, who has had their business for the last 26 years and does nothing flashy, just keeps going and going. You know how much they've learned, how much they know about running a successful business? That's a wealth of knowledge right under your nose that you'd never think of. And there's no social media, you know, campaign to pay them to teach you about success. I'd be knocking on their door every day.
So another 4 years, I'll be 26 years in business, and then you can knock on my door. Yeah. All right, let's finish this up. You know, if you've made it all the way to the end, hope that you got something good out of this, and we'll see you the next time around. Take good care.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yep. See ya.